Hi, I'm McCarthy, and I help people with their breakups. And today we're going to talk about write your breakup story. This is number one thing to do fresh out of a breakup. I'm going to give you some sequence to follow here. I'm going to give you an action step at the end. It's going to be simplistic, clear, and something you can do right away to help you through the first part of your breakup. All right, let's just start with this. Write out your full story of what went down and why, your perspective. Okay, got a little quick on that. Details count. Don't leave stuff out. If you're leaving stuff out, that means that you're ashamed or you're guilty or you're worried about what people think. This is not the time to do that. Just write out your story, let it flow, pencil, pen, keypad, whatever. Take your time to get it all out and write the story anonymously. So you're not writing this story where everyone's going to read it. You're not sharing it with people at work. You're writing this just for you. So be as honest with yourself as possible. Don't worry about what people will think of you. This is why it's better to share with a coach or therapist, and I'll get to that in a moment. I'll elaborate. You can be more vulnerable and honest, not leaving the parts where you might look bad. So what do I mean by that? I mean that you, in a lot of cases, when you talk to friends, family, and colleagues, will leave things out. All right, on both sides, things that make them look bad, things that make you look bad. The key to this is to write out the story and let it flow. Don't overthink it. Take some time to do this. Reread the story to fix any grammar issues and also add any items you missed. This isn't a big deal. You don't have to be, this isn't going to be published. It's not going to be graded. But you just want to go through it because you're going to give it to a coach, therapist, or possibly someone you really trust to read it and go through it with you. And so in order for it to flow, you can take out those mistakes, even with spell check, right? Don't stress too much about this, but at least give it 2 rereads. Don't take out stuff that is embarrassing or uncomfortable. That's why this isn't going to be written for a friend, okay? And that's why there's a lot of value in the fact that a therapist or a coach like myself is going to read it and provide you objective, non-biased feedback. All right, let's get in the bar. Have a coach or a therapist read the story with you present. Okay, this is something I've done for 5 years now. People send in their stories. I don't mention their names. I review them on the YouTube channel. Now, when we go in a live coaching session and take this a step further, it's a lot more interactive. It's a lot more useful because then people can go down rabbit holes and unpack areas of the breakup story, which is their interpretation of what went down and what they're holding on to, and go deeper and get to the bottom layers and get away from this surface-based information. So let me get a little deeper on this. The goal is to get an objective, non-biased opinion from someone with experience with relationships and breakups. Okay, so if that's a therapist or coach, it could be someone that you really respect, that's in your family tree, that's a coworker. You respect their outlook on relationships. You admire how they approach life, okay? A good coach or therapist will hold space, actively listen, and provide neutral, positive feedback. So what do I mean by that? Let me break that out. Holding space means being quiet when you need to listen. Being quiet when someone might be crying or getting emotional. Let them have that moment. Okay? This is a term that's regularly used in the therapeutic space. Hold space. Actively listen means that you will ask questions about the story. You will ask questions, or the coach or therapist will ask questions based on what is going on in the story and what's going on with you. And why I say that's actively listening. When someone asks you more questions about what you're talking about or what you wrote about, now you have an experience where you feel heard, where you feel like you get to give your take and you're not getting bombarded with what to do from someone else's perspective. A good therapist or coach provides a neutral feedback. So someone might go, okay, so why do you think that? So they don't really have a agenda. They don't have a suggestion. They want to know more of why. They're seeking to understand rather than be understood. They're more neutral. Positive feedback maybe is, this isn't as bad as you think it is. They might give you an alternative way to look at it. Someone that comes at you and they just say, wow, I can't believe you did that. You really hurt that person. It's negative. Now, let me be completely clear. A good coach or therapist is not someone that's nice to you all the time or tells you what you want to hear, right? That being said, a good coach will ask questions and not make assumptions. This process will most likely take 90 minutes to 2 hours. You don't want to feel rushed on this. Upon ending any session with a coach or therapist, it's best you feel like you respect their opinion and then you had a good rapport, a good connection. You don't have to like them. You don't have to love them. Respect them and feel like you were on the same page when you were talking. This goes back to active listening. You feel like you were heard. You don't always agree with them, but you don't feel attacked or judged. You feel heard and you believe they have good intentions in being there for you. This is important. If you feel attacked, judged, rushed, or just not in a good rapport, then simply finish your session or look for a new look for a new coach or therapist. That's it. You don't need to complain about it. You don't need to say that therapy and coaching doesn't work. That's just one person. You didn't connect. Maybe that person connects with another person. That's fine. You don't have to like them, but ideally you respect them and feel like they are there to help you find new resources, reframe rigid narratives, and actively listen. So what do I mean by new resources? They give you things that you can do to help you. All right? And so one of the things I do with clients is EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. It's a tapping technique on the meridian points. It'll calm you down and relax you. That's a resource you can use anytime. A guided meditation that's tailored to them. That's a resource they can use anytime. Also, during a coaching session, you will talk about things and help them realize where they have access to more than they know. Reframe rigid narratives. This is one of the biggest things. Your narratives, they'll never call me back. They hate me. They never cared about me. That's a rigid narrative that's generalized, that's not serving you. Okay? You don't need to reframe it to be ultra positive, but know that a narrative is not truth. It's chosen. And so you can reframe that rigid, and rigid means stuck. It means there's no movement. There's no other options. They hate you. They'll never come back. Actively listen, I've already talked about. Why you don't share the story with friends, family, and colleagues? Now, are there exceptions to this rule? Absolutely. But I'm going to say overall, it's usually not a good move, especially if you don't consider the source. This isn't an area they specialize in, and they will only tell you what they would do based on their own agenda and relationship experiences. Okay? In most cases, their outlook won't line up with yours because the average friend, family, or colleague has trouble being objective and honest. They care about you. They have your feelings in mind. In many cases, they will cut you off or just make emotional suggestions. For example, you can do better. Just get back out there. You're good looking. Don't waste your time here. Okay? They just want you to feel better, or in worst cases, they want you to feel worse. People want you to feel what they feel. They are going to impose or project their relationships of the past, and whatever happened in your situation. For example, let's say that your girlfriend leaves you, you feel like you didn't get all the answers, she's been hanging out with new friends, she's been drinking a lot, and you go to your Uncle John and you're like, look, this is what happened. Your Uncle John's like, oh, she's been cheating on you for years. I've known it, and I can tell by the way she dresses, and Uncle John's been cheated on once or twice, and so he just assumes that all women do this. That's worst case scenario. Uncle John, on the other hand, could go, oh, man, call her up, send her some flowers, because he's from the 1950s. He's older, and he's like, it worked for him when he was in high school. Send her some flowers, take her out, dance. I mean, they're going to give you advice based on their own experiences, and this is what a therapist or coach doesn't do. They actively listen. They help you unwind rigid narratives or storylines you're telling and give you more options, choices, and resources that you have more to the story. In some cases, they will share your story in details with others as gossip. This is another worst case scenario, but very common. And when that gets back to your ex, it's all bad. Their takes could encourage you to make wrong moves or impulsive moves that are outside your character. These moves work against you as your ex knows your character well. Okay? So, alternative, share your story anonymously on Reddit or the comment section of YouTube. Okay, I've had clients do this on not on Reddit, but on the comments of my videos. They generally hold back from what they're sharing. They don't tell a complete story. They just tell snippets. They make themselves look better. They accuse the other person of things, which is fine. It's just not the whole story. Okay, and this is where a coach or a therapist will ask you questions and dig a little bit for you to be honest. You are really opening yourself for unkind scrutiny from people you don't respect or know. So if you put your comment, you put it in the comments or you put it on Reddit, this is a sensitive time for you. Don't make it worse, right? You're putting it out there even if you're anonymous. And also you're going to get maybe 5 different pieces of advice that the paradox of choice takes over, and you're suddenly, it's just like when you go to Netflix these days and it's really hard to choose a movie or a series because there's so many to choose from. So someone gives you 5 different opinions, and now you're like, oh, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do that. And really, most of them aren't experts in the field or have experience. They're just telling you what's happened to them before, which is extremely limited. All right? So let's go back. Action step. So I'm always going to end these masterclass breakup videos with an action step. And I expect you to do it, and please share in the comments when you do it, or say, make a commitment. I'm going to take the action step right now. Okay? So here you go. And this is where you're going below surface-based YouTube watching. Oh, I saw this. I watched 10 no contact videos. I watched more videos, but I feel like I'm not making an action step. I need to do something. Here's what you do. I'm giving it to you. I've been doing this for 5 years. People want action steps, especially when you're in no contact. Set aside some time to do this. You don't want to be interrupted during this time, so find a quiet and private place. Perhaps listening to some music to get you into a relaxed state will help. Also, if you want to take a walk first, that's fine. Don't overthink your writing skills. Just get started. Start with how long you've been together and how old you both are. So, we've been together 8 years. You're writing this for someone that doesn't know you or your story. We've been together 8 years. I'm 42 and she's 35. We met on the train in New York, and I could tell when I first met her that she was the most beautiful woman I've ever been with. Now, that's extreme, but that's how you feel. That's how you start the story. And the most important thing is just to start. Next, how did you meet and what transpired in you two becoming official? Then from there, your mind will take you to the next part. Remember, this story is all within you as you were present in these moments. This is a true story that happened to you. So you will recall things as you go. So the most beautiful part about this is you were in this movie. You were there. You were a primary source. So when you recall the story in sequence, it's so much different than telling your friends, family, or colleagues who aren't trained to actively listen or hold space and be quiet when they need to be. So you're constantly being interrupted and asked questions at the wrong time. Where when you write out your story, you're getting the complete interpretation of events from your standpoint. Whether that's a flawed interpretation or not, it needs to be put on paper or typed out. So then you can see it. Now it's crystallized and you can't run from it. And it's actually very therapeutic to write it out and not be interrupted. This story isn't going to be graded. It's just your feelings, your perspective of what you want, what went down, and why. And most importantly, your uninterrupted interpretation. So like I said before, a lot of times you're getting interrupted, okay? Now, the next part after that, book a session to have your story read through with myself at writemac.com. This is something I've done for a while and a long time. Alternatively, if you don't like that idea, book a session with a coach or a therapist to go through the story. So if you have another therapist or a coach, counselor, fine. If you choose a friend or family member, choose them because you admire their experience with relationships. So I just dropped when you choose a college, you choose the one that is best for your major, for your career path, not the one with the best football team. If you're choosing the college because you're playing football there and you want to become an NFL star, then you choose it for the football team. So when you choose a friend, family, or colleague to read through your story, because this is going to be a vulnerable story because you're telling the truth, which most of the time you're not necessarily lying, but you're not going to make yourself look bad to a friend, family, or colleague completely, right? So when you do this, it is best to have a coach or a therapist go through the story with you. This is something that I do first. And the reason for that is we're looking for the problems. And that's going to be my next series on this masterclass on breakups. Thank you for joining. If you want a copy of the PDF of this mind map, it will be in the show notes. Otherwise, good luck.